Today is Wednesday, July 31st. On a personal note, I have been trading, essentially uh, semi-trading, semi-gambling for the past 4 years. And admittedly, the first 3.999 years were essentially gambling. And the reason is clear. So today, and I made a video yesterday about a confirmation of a specific revelation that occurs that provides a crystal clear personalization of a revelation that occurs in a trade. Whereas I confirm that I see a setup and have a very good idea the direction of that setup. And then I enter. Then I watch. And I see the results momentarily later. Then that final result coincides with the conclusions that I made point by point by point that led to that conclusion. Having that conclusive connection between premise to the final outcome on a consistent basis is a very exciting revelation. Now, I've seen this particular setup being mentioned by other, specifically this guy who's a YouTuber on what is it, like Beta Trader or something? And then what he describes is one instance where there is a setup that he looks at, and it's very similar to this. What is very interesting about this setup is there's in the military term, there's the thing called Moab. It's called the mother of all bombs. And apparently it weighs about 30,000 kilograms or something like that. And essentially what it is a long metal tube filled with chemical compounds that generates a enormous amount of hot gases instantaneously. And there is nothing like it bigger. There's quite a few smaller, and so what that does, it obliterates anything that is in the vicinity of the intended purpose of that metal tube. So today I've confirmed why he put that setup in his YouTube video. What is very, very interesting is that it generates a substantial, because fundamentally speaking, the idea of day trading is to define a situation where there is an entry point, and where that entry point is to substantiate and ride out something called a trend as long as possible. That's essentially the intent of any trade that I make. I'm not in a trade to get in and see a red counter to my thesis and then I would exit. That's completely opposite of the intent. The intent is to, if I get into here, is to ride out the maximum of this particular trend that has been established. Now, Now, that essentially is the foundation of trading. That is the foundation. You can't make money any other way. None whatsoever. Even in options, the intent is to either sell or buy or whatever it is to maximize to create the biggest gain, whether it's a straddle or a spread, whatever it is, to create an instance where that premise becomes a reality with the maximum impact. Moab, right? So I've looked at, it's very similar to this. Now this is also like, I suppose is a double bottom right here. That's a double bottom. And somebody else on YouTube mentioned that their favorite setup is actually the double top. Double bottom is the inverse of what he's talking about. So uh, why have I taken 6 minutes to describe this particular situation? Because this is essentially the mother of all setups. It's not a Moab, it's Moas. It's a Moas, okay? Mother of all setups. Moas. You get it? Moas. So, why is this so intriguing? So now I get to this point here, right here. Look. So if I come back here to the left side, it does this, and then it just climbs like a rocket from here to here, right? It goes up there. After it went up there, it started to drop. Okay, so this is actually essentially like a Head and Shoulders. This too, sort of, it's not, the double tops are essentially in a non-ideal situation, real world situation, is essentially staggered between this to this here. So that can also be looked at it that way as well. So I saw this, it dropped, and then what I have noticed is that what happens is, so if I look at it closer, what it would do is it'll pop back up and then drop back down. And then what it did was what I've learned from Al Brooks' trading course is that when something moves in a prolonged period of time, it essentially dissipates the energy of that particular trend. So this has established, it nullified this downward pressure that was being impacted. And therefore, currently it's about 12 o'clock right now. Some news must have hit to cause this to occur, probably FOMC, right? Yeah, on the East Coast it's FOMC. So when I look at this situation, I looked at that particular situation and I thought to myself, you know what? This has established a long pattern of 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 minutes of time of moving sideways. It moves sideways, which means that it has fully dissipated the intent of the previous declines in the market. That's what it means. And therefore, I got in. So when I get these little arrows right there, so I wrote it up from here to here. Of course, I could have wrote it up a little more, but I got out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes before to this collapse based on the FOMC news, right? Usually that's what happened because interest rates directly impacts the forex pairs where the U.S. market is impacting the U.S. The interest rate adjustments occurred, right? So any pair that is paired with a U.S. currency is going to be impacted severely, right? And so what happens is that the first instance is essentially what that means is it has dissipated from this point here, and because it has been severely price impacted, it wants to revert back to where it came from. Okay. And so under that premise, and looking at a point where the candles are pointing to the thesis that I have concluded, is the point where I enter and write it out, and sizing in as reasonably as possible to maximize this setup. Then I got in here, and then at a certain point I exited this trade. This is essentially what I would call a plus setup. Moas. It's called a Moas, not Moab, Moas.